Well, now that you've given us this context of how we got here, and I can relate with you because I was brought Catholic as well. So how, this pushed us into look for something else. And we're going to talk about how that, we evolved. And I think it was a process, but just, kind of tell us a little bit of what your book covers, what are the topical areas, what kind of information can the audience find there? We've mentioned, or you mentioned about, there's no hell. I mean, what else can we find which is really
Oh, okay.
different?
Okay, I'm gonna have to
I
pick
know
it
there's a
up and
lot.
I'm gonna have to pick it up and look through it a little bit, but,
Please, please.
okay, so I call it book 1 because it's the first bite of trying to understand Jesus and liberate your thinking about Jesus. That's the first step. So let me see here. The first, chapter is called The Limitations of Christianity,
Okay.
and that talks about, the errors that it made, the middlemen, all kinds of problems. And if you're a Christian, this is not meant to be an attack on everything you hold and value and love. It's meant to focus us on Jesus Christ. That's what it's meant to do,
Which
to
is very
take away
important.
those errors. It
We
is.
never we never go against, we build upon. I mean, this isn't anything about
Absolutely.
destroying, but it's building on the
Mhm.
basis. Definitely.
Agreed. And I could tell you that the reason that I was able to understand and make so much progress with the Arancha book was the Christianity I was brought up with,
Yeah,
period.
definitely.
But so that's what chapter 1 is. Let's look at that. And as you go through, you got to keep in mind, you keep your loyalty and devotion to God, not humans. If that's your ultimate loyalty, then you can be brave enough to take the steps to admit that, well, maybe some of what I taught is not really what Jesus taught or is an error. And if you have the bravery to do that, you'll enjoy this book. The second one is chapter 2 is called The Direct Steps to Jesus, Escaping the Monopoly. So, many people in their Christian tradition were told that the only way you can know Jesus and the Father and have eternal life is by being a member of that church and believing everything that you're told and obeying the church leaders. That's the formula for a lot of
A
not progressive.
hierarchy.
So
There's a
absolutely a
hierarchy
human
that you have to
hierarchy.
follow. Yeah,
hmm
yeah.
But this is about, well, what can you do to free your mind and then spiritual techniques to know Jesus directly? There's a whole series. I give a whole formula of how to do it. And it's based on the teaching of Jesus.
Okay.
We know that he spent a lot of time with the Father and, the apostles. He didn't ask them to pray to him. He said, pray to the Father.
Yeah.
So Jesus will take you there. So that's what that's about. Then the chapter 3 is called Who is Jesus?
Okay.
Let's look into the real, as known as Christology of, was he human? Was he divine? Was he some kind of combination of that? Where did he come from? What's his purpose here? All of that. That's that's what chapter 3 is about.
I mean, now that we're mentioning real quick, and I don't want to get into the details, but I think
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, maybe later you're going to explain it, but I think it's very important that and you mentioned it, that he did not come here to rid the sins of anybody. That's one of the biggest confusions, I
That's right.
believe, because it makes us all evil in a way. It makes us,
hmm
we're tainted, and he
Right.
becomes a blood sacrifice from this supposedly loving God, but then in the end, once the death of the blood of his son,
hmm Right.
to rid the sin that we didn't have. So, I mean, that's something that is really appalling. And, now that I know, and I grew up like believing
uh
in this, and,
uh
going to communion and in the body and the blood of Christ, of course. And I see that there is a communion there, but not necessarily the way that I was taught of. So I think this is a very important distinction, right?
Yeah, definitely. There's, those core teachings cloud our experience of God. If you really believe that Jesus was a blood sacrifice, there's how could it even work? And even if it could work, why would you want to design it that way as God?
Yeah.
You make the rules. It's it's uh it's grotesque and absurd. It's completely blasphemous to the idea of a loving heavenly Father. It's just disgusting to think that, yeah, you know what? So my daughter, she made some mistakes. I don't have a son, but if I did have a son, Like, you know what? Okay, here's what we're going to do. Um, we're going to kill and torture one of them, and then that will make you free. That's what
But
it
in a
is.
nutshell, that's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. It's
That's
more like,
when you take everything apart, that's what it is. And you realize that is, how can I, you know,
uh
serve a God? And then you make sense to why do people
right.
shy away from the church and from Jesus? It's because the way he's packed, the way
It
that teacher
is.
telling us that he had to come and die for us because were inherently bad. I mean,
No, no, no,
really, you're
no.
starting on the wrong foot, right? How are you
Well,
going to make people interested into this loving God when we start saying that he comes here to kill us, to kill his son?
right. And look, I mean, if you're watching this and you have some questions about what we've been brought up with, ask yourself, am I brave enough? Am I adventurous enough to trust God to go on this journey
Yeah.
of
It's
loyalty
not
to
easy.
God? And no, it isn't. But in a way, it's like it's kind of like a cult. So you might, whatever tradition you're in, think of it as you are inside a walled compound. It's completely walled. It's a castle. And everybody who lives in there believes the same thing. They do the same thing, and they give their loyalty to humans to run the place. And you all, you love each other, you work together. It's your whole world. It's really wonderful. So, but the price of admission is belief in the rules and the description of the world and doing what the leaders want you to do. So if you stop doing any of those things, you lose your friends, your family, maybe your job, the experience, your sense of identity, all of that, because it's all in this walled compound.
Yeah.
But once you follow God out of there, now you're free to to join another community or form a community of like-minded, joyous people. And that's what's happened with so many tens and tens and millions of people right now. I know there are a lot of younger people who have a hunger for Jesus, and they're returning to spiritual communities, but I think they may have a different attitude about just blindly following things. But whatever it is, eventually when people reach a stage of spiritual maturity, if they're honest, they become dissatisfied and they
Yeah.
want to grow. They want to keep growing. So
Yeah. Definitely.
that's what this is about
I
completely.
love,
So
I love,
we only
I
got to
love this
chapter 3, right?
conversation. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay, cool. So
So
then
moving on.
chapter 4 is the original teachings of Jesus, the lost pre-Christian way.
Okay.
So if you just looked at the words of Jesus in the Bible, they are very, very different from what um, apostles taught, what Paul taught, and later church leaders. For the most part, very, 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 very different. So what did he teach? And that's what chapter 4 is about. So we know it's one of the fundamental things people ask is, well, who is God? What's the nature of God? What did Jesus teach? And we know that he taught that God is a loving father. We know that God isn't a human with a beard or anything. We know this. We know God isn't male or female. God is not male or female, but God, the best way for us to understand God that created everything is as a loving father. And the best example of that was the parable of the prodigal son. That's what Jesus taught. And the parable of the prodigal son, for those of you who don't know it, is that there's a wealthy Jewish landowner. He has vineyards. He has lots of lands and servants, very wealthy, and he has two sons. One does everything he's told, and he's straight and narrow, works real hard, really doesn't have any friends because he's working all the time. And son number two likes to party, has lots of friends, and just happy-go-lucky. And eventually he gets bored on the farm and says, hey, tell you what, give me my inheritance. I'll make my way in the world. So the father reluctantly gives him his money. He leaves. He goes to a distant land, parties, has prostitutes, just has a wonderful time, and uses up all the money. He's completely broke. So he ends up working on a pig farm, and he's so poor, he's starving. He doesn't even get to eat, the husks of corn he's giving the pigs. So he says, everyone has it better than me. Back in my father's place, I'm going back. So he goes back, and the father has been looking for him every day since he left. And eventually he sees him and he says to the servants, get the son's ring, get the robe, kill the fatted calf or goat, and his son is just falls down on his knees and on his feet and wants to confess, and his father doesn't even allow him to. He just hugs him. He says, my son who was lost has returned. He's back. Let's party. And of course, the other son doesn't like this at all. But
Yeah.
I guess the point is that that's the nature of a unconditional love from the
Yeah.
Father. It doesn't mean he condones everything you do at all, but that love is there. And that's what Jesus revealed. And if you really believe that, then stuff about hell and negativity, all that goes away. But the other big thing that Jesus taught was, all right. And then the next question was, well, how do I lead a better life, or how can I be saved? I want to go
Yeah.
on the next world. And Jesus said, the only thing that's necessary to experience the kingdom of heaven is faith. And faith, to me, is that you are, without intellectual proof, you are accepting the experience you're already having. We talked about this before, about
Yeah.
normal children will experience God. So you just need to accept God within, believe that you are a child of God and that we're all brothers and sisters, and then know that your faith is going to continue to save you and deliver you. But of course, part two is, once you know this, you're expected to try to follow God's will and live a better life and do some spiritual exercise. You can't just say, oh, I'm saved. No, it doesn't work that way.
It's progressive. And
It
actually,
is.
once you start this path,
Mhm.
it's first discovery, it's allegiance, into these, and it's not allegiance, not blind allegiance like we were talking about. It's truly
Right.
realizing that, the ways of God and what God has for us is the best path. And then you're called to serve, and in any capacity that you can, and it's so
Mhm.
loving and it's so
Right.
fulfilling when, you give a little bit of you. When anybody, and this is we both can relate to this, because part
Uh-huh.
of what we do is try to share this information of God with people. And you can't have words when somebody, when you see something click inside
Uh-huh.
somebody, and then maybe you were that conduit for him, not you. It's not you aggrandizing
Uh-huh.
yourself. It's really
Right.
you being
Hmm.
the conduit for
Oh, I
that
like that.
person
Yeah.
to
Hmm.
open up and understand, his relationship with God. It's not you. You're just, that step in
Uh-huh.
that process, and you become part of that universe, and it's so loving and it's so fulfilling. And I mean, maybe you're not taking, you can't bank it, there's not going to be more money
Right.
in your bank account, but it's, in the end, it's worthless, in the end, that's not what's going to
It
be
is.
eternal. In the end, it's going to be that what you did, that's going to be
Mhm.
eternal, right?
It's just, yeah, everything else is scaffolding and means to the end. And the most important thing in life are the relationships that you have. I think most people who are on a spiritual path would agree with that. And
Yeah.
the most important relationship is with God. And again, it's not, people have a misconception that if you're, if you even acknowledge that God exists and you want to follow his will, that somehow you're weak or lazy or a machine or all
Infantile
these
or
negative things,
delusional,
infantile,
yeah,
right? Or you just want to be helped. But if you really take the adventure of following God's will, you're going to have the most exciting, challenging life you can imagine. That's going to require you to grow, be brave, make sacrifices, be selfless. And you might think that, oh, it's going to diminish my will. This is just some weird church concept. It's going to amplify and release all the potentials of your true will. Because
definitely.
part of the delight of your will is your ability to recognize God, to choose to pay attention to the light, and then have the adventure of interpreting or discerning what that will is, and then go doing it. And a lot of times, the will of God is not like a set of instructions most of the time. A
No.
lot of people have the misconception of, oh, God's going to tell me exactly what, I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that,
Oh,
and I'm just going to be a stupid robot. It's the opposite. It's a lot, sometimes God will be very, very specific, but what I found is most of the time it's, this is what I want you to achieve. This is the kind of man I want you to become. You figure out the rest. I'll give you the vision. You develop the goals, the objectives, the action plans, all of it.
and I'll be your
That's
coach, by
your,
the way, also.
I'll
I'm
be
going to
your
be here
coach.
coaching you. You can always
Right.
lay back on me, right?
Right. Hmm. Right. And, to make this shift in your thinking, I think requires stepping away from the herd, being brave enough to step away from the herd, no matter what that herd is. You're hip, or you have to, because all of us in a way are in a walled compound. It could be walled. Hopefully we have doors in our compound, but a lot of us are still, okay, I left this walled compound because negative church experience, Jesus, all that crap. All right, I'm going to go into this walled compound where the rule is, here's a new set of rules. But I encourage you to free yourself from that and just explore the truth.
Yes. What else can we find in your book, Chris?
Oh, let's see, where we are. Chapter 5, living with Jesus without Christianity, total liberation, joy, and triumph. So now that we've learned about who he is, what were his original teachings, how we can take away the negative misconceptions we have, okay? What does that mean to your life, experiencing Jesus today? What's that going to do for you? That's what it's about. Now, this book is also, I've also put a lot of quotations from Jesus from the Rancher book.
Which
And again,
is what I wanted also. I mean, I don't know if you want
Yeah.
to share them right now, because I think this is very
Sure.
good. I mean, taking
Totally
them, the quotes, I think are really impactful. That's what really got me into the Oriental book, reading some of these
Right.
quotes. They're so profound. On the Divine Within podcast, we'll share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.